Last year I was sitting at a desk as a sales manager, and now I'm official McLaren F1 simulator test driver.
So there's 1.4 behind.
This opportunity is huge.
That's it, 46 watts.
That's faster than the factory McLaren driver. And he's done 6 laps.
Let's go race.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're back for the rFactor 2 McLaren Shadow qualifier. In case you missed round number 1, then you actually missed a lot of great racing action with the MP4 8 that were raced last time. But this week, it is actually Zandvoort, the beautiful track in the Netherlands, the home country of our Studio 397, and we're racing with the one legend, and I want to say really, really old, but that sounds mean. The McLaren M23. So we're going back in time once again. Back to the days when cars were basically beasts. Not really trying to win a race with you, but more like killing you during the race. Once again, it's the same format. We will have qualification, we will have a race, and the top 10 of the race, they will actually get their ticket to the big rFactor 2 qualifier final. Well, they then grab another ticket, at least if they win, to get into the McLaren Shadow. Semi-finals, fights, and all that is happening afterwards, where everyone from all those big games come together to race for the big prize that is McLaren Shadow itself, basically. But we're here, we're doing the rFactor 2 qualifier. So out of the whole leaderboard, out of all the people that actually tried to qualify this week, we took the fastest 30 once again. Put them on one grid, put them on one server, one track, and now we're trying to figure out who are the fastest 10. Once again, I'm not doing that alone, which is great. Just to remind you guys, my name is Serena Butler. I'm bringing you the live action, and like I said, not alone, which is great, because once again, I got the legend himself, Jimmy Broadbent, with me to bring you all the racing action. As far as I know, racing action is already on, so I would say let's just head over and get onto the track to actually see what's going on. Jumping over, let's see if Jimmy is ready. Jimmy, are you around?
Oh, I'm always here, Rene. Always glad to hear from you.
That is great.
Great to be here again. Of course, last time out we saw 10 of our finest RF2 drivers go through after a awesome race at Silverstone. This time, something a bit different, Rene. M23s this time, a whole different kettle of fish.
It is like there's even less in the car to help you. There's no automatic up and down shift like we have on the MP4 8. It's pure racing, just big tyres, a bit of a wing, fast cars, and obviously the Zandvoort track in the Netherlands.
Yep, a circuit that I have to confess isn't one of my favourites, but it really does suit these cars well. We're actually watching a couple of our guys go around on the circuit right now. And you might notice that these guys are pretty much sideways at every corner. Those big fat rear tyres, you pretty much just lean on those as you go around on this lap. You actually spend a very scary amount of time not facing in a straight line, but it's definitely spectacular to watch if nothing else.
Isn't that what it should be? Not really facing the straight line? All the fun that's in there.
Well, I do that anyway, but usually for the wrong reasons. So.
Kind of true. Like we all know that feeling. It's not just you, Jimmy. So don't worry. It's part of the struggle for all of us. But let's have a quick look at the current qualification, which still runs another 4 minutes. And currently it is Kevin Ryan who's leading in front of Giorgio Baldi, which is basically what we saw on the leaderboard before going into this, right?
It is, yeah. We currently have our top 3 drivers separated by only 0.04 of a second. It shows you how close it is around here. And bear in mind, it's a 90-second circuit, so that's pretty much just braking a meter later somewhere, or getting a slightly better exit. But again, we have to make this very clear, Rene, is that this, whilst you're qualifying, is essentially a hot lapping competition. The race is very different. You have to take a car out with race fuel, about 30 minutes worth of fuel, of course, and as you'll know, Rene, when you have a car that's heavy on fuel, it handles quite a bit differently. It isn't quite the same car you'll get just over a single lap.
That is true. I mean, the car changes, the track changes throughout the whole race. Obviously, everyone needs to juggle around a bit with their tyres and how they feel and how much they can push, especially on these cars. I mean, there's not a ton of mechanical grip, nor aero grip. So, every inch that you can squeeze out of these cars, and I can see it by the way with Kevin right now. I got the camera on him on my side and see him going on sideways in all of those corners. And I think that's what we see most of the times here, because if you want to be quick, you need to push it slightly above the limit on every exit.
Oh, and just to say that, we do have a new provisional pole sitter. It's Peyo Peeve at the moment, top of the timesheets with a 1:30.4, going nearly 2/10 clear of Kevin Ryan, so a great lap from him. We actually saw a little bit in our in the awesome video you guys put up on your RF2 Twitter page of the merged fastest laps, which is quite difficult to watch, but if you know what you're looking for, it's very good to watch at the same time. That Giorgio Baldi actually had a really good lap until the last corner, where he slowed right down, lost a couple of attempts, and that's pretty much what cost him being top of the timesheets in the initial qualifying.
Yeah, that is true. Like, Baldi really had great first and second sector, basically. And then one of these huge tyres on the back, they actually decided to go onto the grass. That costs a bit of time. And then it was Kevin Ryan taken away from him. But we all know the leaderboard is great. You want to be in the top 30 because you want to be in this race here on the weekend showdown. But after that, it doesn't matter at all.
No, pretty much. You want to be in the top 10 at the end of this race, which means you have an interesting attitude to take into this race. If you're someone maybe running 3rd or 4th position with no one around you, you can essentially just cruise to the line and guarantee yourself a slot in the next round. But if you're maybe 11th or 12th position, you have 10th just above, that's probably going to be one of the more intense fights on the circuit, just to try and get through to the next session. Just saying that right now, our gap from 1st to 10th position is only about 7/10 at the moment, and after that it does drop off. It sort of drops off around 16th or so. We go about a second off from there. But to be honest, how close these guys are, and a lot of these guys in here, again, I recognise from various series that I'm not really about hot lapping, more about consistent lap times. Once we get into the race session, those who are better at hot lapping might start falling back a little bit into those who are a bit more consistent in race pace.
Yeah, definitely. We should try to highlight that a bit, because sometimes I see people questioning that, like, shouldn't it be the quickest one that's the quickest in hot lap? That is definitely not the case. As long as it is a proper simulation that actually simulates how the track behaves over time and how the car behaves over time, because every lap it's a new game. Every lap you're trying to find the quickest line, the maximum grip the tires and the car actually give to you in the corners to play around with. And that's not easy. It's like, that one shot on hot lap is fine if everything stays the same. You can probably do, like, all of these guys can probably do the same lap time over and over again. But this is basically their real life. There is no same car state every single lap.
Yep, it's one of the things that is a big draw, I think, for RF2, having the dynamic track surface and, of course, the tyre model as well. We won't go into that too much for now, though. We only have 10 seconds left of qualifying. I'm currently watching POP come round. He's sliding around the last corner. I don't think he's going to get across the line to set a new lap. No, he's not, so this might be his last lap now. Does not improve, so he'll remain provisional pole sitter. And Gergo Baldi goes fastest on a 1:30.3, narrowly edging out there. POP in the other car, so that's a 600th faster. We have a couple of people still out on laps. Hubert Brzezinski at the moment, he's out at the moment, just coming through the middle sector, as well as Adam Pinces. He's coming around, I think, the last corner at the moment. That long right-hander car slides to try and take the fastest line through. He comes across the line. He does go slightly faster, but not enough to improve beyond 5th position. So right now, Gergo Baldi looking quite strong for that pole position.
Yeah, he's striking back there after he lost the leaderboard lead, basically, before going into this event. And one thing we should maybe mention as well before going into the race, if you're wondering, like, where are all these names of last round's top 10? Obviously, as soon as you have your ticket, there's no, first of all, there's no use, and there's also no entry for you on the next round. So you got your ticket for the qualifier final, which means you do not turn up for round 2, you do not turn up for round 3. So it's a completely new group, or maybe some people that did not manage to get top 10 last time, and when we hit Silverstone in the MP4.
Now, the important thing coming up at the start of last race, Rene, we saw, I'd say, quite an aggressive start from some people. I think we lost about 4 or 5 cars before we got through the first sector. I'm sure that's going to be running through the minds of everyone here. None more than Jim Paresis, who's actually currently sitting in 9th position. He took part in last week's race, or last couple of weeks, for a couple of weeks ago now, wasn't it? Sorry, time goes very quickly when you're busy. But he took part in the last race. Unfortunately, he actually disconnected quite early on, and here he is again, so he's showing he has got the talent to be here a second time. I'm sure he's hoping to maybe have some better luck this time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you mentioned already the start. I don't want to say crash, because obviously race marshals had a look at all of that, and there have been some smaller incidents, nothing super major, but it was also very crowded, right? We're talking about 30 people diving down to turn 1, and most of them raced in 1 second during qualification.
Yeah, it doesn't take much,
that's
really,
just
does
crazy.
it? We'll just crate you through our positions then. Currently on pole is Gergo Baldi, and then second place is POP in second there. Kevin Ryan third, Hubert Brzezinski in fourth, Adam Pinches fifth, Yuri Kastorp sixth, Stephen Giem 7th, Jason Muscat 8th, Jim Paresis, who we just mentioned, in 9th, and Daniel Serangoon is in 10th position. So those are your top 10. If the race was to somehow magically happen and end now, they would be your 10 people provisionally going through to the next round. But of course, we have a half-hour race here at Zandvoort between then and now, so anything could happen.
And there's still a lot of fast guys sitting right behind that. I mean, on 11th, we got Mark Behrens. 12 is Niranjan Kumar and Philippe Calderon on 13th. I think I also saw him on the first race. Fernando Alvarez 15, 14 is Wojciech Poleski. So there are a lot of guys coming. There's another 18 drivers after the top 10 waiting for that top 10 spot. And we saw last time, when there is a spot open or someone is struggling and they get closer, oh, they're in for a hell of a race. Yeah,
I mean, bear in mind, round here, these cars don't produce as much of a slipstream, or as much dirty air, I should say, as the cars from last time, the MP4 These things are a little bit more slidey, as you've probably seen on circuit, which hopefully means we'll have a bit closer racing. Unfortunately, last time around, we had a high downforce car around the high downforce circuit, which meant getting close to someone was actually quite difficult. Here, I think there's a lot more corners, a lot more technical, slower speed corners, which will allow those who are better with the car mechanically to maybe close the gap somewhat. So hopefully a bit more action than last time's race.
Give me a small go at the guys following with 20, because I know that we got only the top 20 on the list. So it's Jason Whited on 20th position. That's Matthew Daniels right after. Rolls Hubin 22nd. Gabor Tim on 23rd. Giulio Skrinzi on 24th, then Barry Aarons 25th, Roman Lamy, Vladislav Pavlov, Vopke Hoekstra, and Christian Perusko. He's currently last, sitting on 29th, so we're missing one driver of our top 30. That's a pretty full-packed grid, especially with all those back corners falling right after the start.
Oh, so I'll tell you what, right now, I'm glad you went through those names. It wasn't me as an English player. There's a lot of Eastern European guys in here and around there. We had some people talking about that earlier on. It's kind of great to see this amount of different people turn up for these races from different backgrounds, etc. There was some fella here saying that he was racing on a 4x3 resolution, which is nuts. I've not done that since the...
Isn't that not considered standard anymore? Come
No,
on, man.
Sorry, right there, mate. You're a little bit behind with the times.
Yeah, I got 3 of them. You know, 3 of those old
yeah, on your CRT monitors. Big old
3
box
of them.
things.
Triple screen, man.
You already say that. But anyway, to get back to this, we only have 2 minutes now until we get into the race. Guys are out there right now practicing on the heavier tanks of fuel. Not quite a fuel tank for half an hour, a full tank for half an hour around here. Of course, these cars exist in a time before refueling came and went in F1, so they can take a full tank worth of fuel, but you don't need that for here. But it will feel very different. Of course, a lot more weight towards the rear of the car. When people are sliding it as much as they are, that's going to affect how the car moves and how it reacts on the slide. So this is a good time for people to get out there and just adapt to that change slightly.
Yeah, I mean, actually, they're all lucky that these cars do not go through fuel like you go through all those glasses of whiskey and all that on the events.
Oh, I wouldn't know anything about that, Rene.
Yeah, I'm not trying to tell any story here.
So there you go. Before I'm outed by Rene, I'm looking forward to this one. T1 here is quite a long run down to T1, then into a relatively tight corner, the Tarzan corner as it's known. I think that one's the Tarzan corner, according to the track map it is anyway. Heavy braking, and with these cars, I've seen a lot of people kick out the rear end to get a little bit more rotation and then look for the late apex and get on throttle from there. But of course, if you have a car on your inside or on your outside, you can't really kick the car out without fear of taking someone else with you. So these guys are all extremely talented. You have to be to get to this point in the competition just to qualify. I mean, just to give you some context again, last time I tried to qualify for one of these events, I think I came about 120th, 130th out of, and you need to be top 30 to qualify. But that is hot lapping. Hot lapping is one thing, racing is quite different, so hopefully people can sort of distinguish between the two before we get down to T1 today.
It's the first time, I mean, we all know we released these cars, like the whole McLaren pack with the M23, the MP4 and the MP4 13, the car that we'll see next week. No, it's not next week, it's the week after.
I said 4.3, didn't I? 4.8, I'm good at that.
Yeah, for the MP4 and the MP4 13. So, they're not that old yet. They're old in terms of when they were released originally, but they're not old in rFactor 2. So this is actually my first race where I see the M23 going in a group. So I'm really hyped for that one, because that will look amazing. And I just want to see all of them cope with it, like having people left and right. Good thing is, in those cars, you got a good overview, right? There's not much that distracts your view, basically.
Pretty much not, no, and we're now coming on to the grid. Now it'll be a standing start here today. No traction control like we had in the MP4 8s. So it's all going to be about how good you are on the clutch or how soft you are on throttle getting away. Again, it will be Gogo Baldy leading off the pack. And it will be no formation that. We'll get straight into the action. 15 seconds until the lights come on.
And there we go. Everyone is settling on the grid. Round number 2 of the rFactor 2 McLaren Shadow qualifier here on Zandvoort. And we're nearly good to go with Giorgio Baldi leading the pack into turn 1, hopefully without any sign of green light here on Zandvoort. Off we go, and Baldi seems like he has a great start there.
Good start there, but looking down the field, guys vying position right now. Good start by Baldi, nice and clean through there. Kastorp looks around the outside of Brzezinski into T1, nice and, slides a bit wide there, actually onto the gravel slightly in the background. Also, everyone's got through fairly cleanly. I can't see any body parts flying so far. It's good to see Adam Pinces in 6th position, getting onto the grass, trying to work his way around Jim Paresis. Jim's had a good start, up into 7th position from 9th on the grid, so not a bad start from him. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, a great start for Gogo Baldi. He's going to just try and drive off now. Try not to look into his mirrors too much. He's come through this long right-hander through the first time. Rear end of the car tries to overtake the front, but you can't let it. And pretty much a dream start there for Gergo.
Yeah, that looks really good. I see someone going off in the back. I don't know who was there trying to grab them. Right now I see 1 or 2 cars going wide into the gravel trap there. Unfortunately, no chance for them to stay with the pack. Paresis, as he said already, is off the 7th. That is a good start for him. And then Princess did the same. Basically on top, Baldi was actually able to create a bigger gap to pay a Peeve already, but he got Kuba Pachensky all over him already. That will be a fight that we'll see a bit earlier, but the biggest group so far is definitely the one with Stephen Diem, Adam Pinchas, and Jimmy Paresis. And all the way to the back, it's Daniel Chiranku, who currently sits on the last spot that will actually get the ticket for the final, but Ben Suspanek, he tries to steal it away from him. Both in the red car here. Hopefully get that on your camera soon, because these two are fighting already.
So it's Boldo, Peeve, and Brzezinski, your top 3 right now. Again, Baldi just trying to spread his gap somewhat. We'll go back down to that battle for 10th position, Rene. And yeah, Benz is right on the back of Daniel at the moment as we come through the first sector. Now this hairpin right here, it's very tricky. It seems to go on forever. And if you get on the throttle too early, you're met with this quite high curve on the right-hand side. I've seen a lot of people spin there during practice, so Sarang there was actually nice and soft through that section, made sure to get through without any fault. Seemed to have spread the gap a little bit there to Supenek behind him, so that's a nice first sector. It seems that everyone is starting to spread out, trying to find a little bit of groove, a little bit of their own space on the circuit. The last thing you want to do in these races is have a very high stress start and just have that continue all the way through. Just have a couple of laps, get used to who's around you, get used to your pace, and then maybe start thinking about going on the attack.
Yeah, the top 10 is basically sorted, but 12, 13, 14, that's Wojciech, Poleski, Ivan Fernandez, and Barry Aarons. They're very, very close. That's below half a second between those cars currently, and it seems like Wojciech Poleski, I can see him sometimes sliding a bit left and right. He's being chased down by Ivan Fernandez in the black and green McLaren Shadow right behind him. So they are not yet in the spots on the sunlight, basically, but we saw that last time. You can just all of a sudden basically end up in top 10 because someone did a mistake. So you need to fight for every single position out there that's available.
And definitely, and in Fernandez's case, he needs to get by Poleski as quick as he can, because otherwise Petnek and Serangoon in front, they're going to just pull away, and there goes the idea or the thought of getting through to the top 10. So he needs to try and get rid of Poleski as soon as possible, really. He's being held up a little bit. You can kind of tell when you look back through the field who the cork in the bottle is, and right now it's definitely Poleski. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars I count stuck behind him at the moment. But you notice again, these guys can't follow too closely. Barry Aaron's actually now behind Fernandez, looking to maybe try and pick up a position. Yep, still all over the back of that rather interesting looking green and black McLaren. It's kind of weird seeing the cars in these liveries. Bear in mind, of course, I'm used to seeing them in their real life liveries, but I'm not sure if we're allowed to show those anymore, given they're all tobacco sponsors.
Yeah, there is obviously a problem with that, but we don't dive into any of that. That's licensing issues, and no one wants to talk about that. I can tell you that. But let's see a bit further down the pack. I saw someone. It's Danny van der Niet and Niranjan Kumar. That's 16th and 17th position. They're very close right now. Obviously, they're not really fighting for the top spots right now, but we'll make sure that we always have an eye on the top 10 runners. But all of them trying to do a good job in spacing, making sure that everything is going right. I tell you, if they will play ice hockey, their spacing will be on point, and the coach will totally up for that.
You know, I've not heard anyone go from motorsport to ice hockey before, so congratulations on that, Rene. You win that.
Always
award.
in for something new, man. You know that.
We're only 5 minutes into this race now. 5 minutes of 30, so 25 minutes remaining. Again, tyres will be a little bit of an issue, and especially rear tyres around here, given how much these guys are really throwing the cars around. You see a lot of people balancing on the rear tyre, which is essentially how you drive these cars. If you notice a big difference between tyre width between the front and the back, you'll notice where the majority of the grip is. So you actually end up using your throttle a lot to steer the car, and what that means is by balancing the throttle to induce a little bit of oversteer, to get the car pointing the way you want it to point. It's not literally trying to steer the wheel with your throttle, because people have tried that before, and you don't get very far, I can tell you that now.
I do a bit easier, you know, like I use my hands on the pedals, and then use my feet on the steering wheel, and then it works again. Magic, man, it's super easy. Unfortunately, we saw Naranja Kumar doing a slight mistake there. He dropped down to 22nd position, so he's not really in any attack range down there. We also lost Anthony Kolarek and Roman Lamy due to suspension damage, and a DNF for Vladislav Pavlo and Kevin Ryan. With Kevin Ryan, we actually lost one of the big favorites. Well, we see Philippe Calderon still working on Jason Muscat to get onto 8th position.
Yeah, Kevin Ryan, big name to go there. Unfortunately for him, he will have one more chance to get through. One more qualifying round remaining after this one, so maybe he'll come back that one stronger. You've asked for an onboard. We do have one here, but I'm going to ask our camera director to go on board with Adam Pinches, currently in 6th position. He's chasing down Stephen James, so you get a really great idea of what it's like to follow someone around here in this McLaren M23. So we're going now downhill. We'll come back up like a little roller coaster through this section. And then this right-hander is blind. You have to know it's coming. You throw the car to the inside. Try and touch this curb a little bit on the right. Then not too far out to the left. There's gravel there waiting for you. And now into this very tricky double right-hand section. You can see in these cars just how much they slide on the way in. You feel like when you're watching that the car is going to continue to go around. But nope, that's how you drive these things. Nice and soft on the throttle here. All these slow speed corners, it's very easy to loop this car. You have about 500 brake horsepower going to those rear tyres. No traction control, so all the traction control is done by your right foot. And now we come to one of the slowest points of the circuit, over the crest, heavy on the brake, the chicane through here. Very easy to get this wrong and go into the gravel. You see Adam actually gaining a little bit on Stephen in front, but having to slow up as he touches the sausage curb on the inside. That disrupts the car. Now coming up to the penultimate corner. Get this right and it sets you up for this very fun and very fast long right hand at the end. Very easy to get this wrong and lose a lot of time. Again, look how much the car is sliding through here to walk it out to the outside of the track. And now you're coming down the pit straight. One more lap completed. We'll stay with him for a couple more corners. Down to T1. Heavy on the brakes once more. This corner cambers in. So get the car to the inside. Softly, softly. Now hit the throttle hard. See Stephen in front. Big dab of opposite lock, and that is essentially a lap there around the Zandvoort circuit on board with Adam Pinces. Not quite close enough though to take 5th position.
Yeah, but Adam showed us that Yuri Kastrup, he's currently on 4th, is struggling a bit. We see Stephen Diem and Adam Pinches always getting a bit closer, but even it's the same for Jim Paresis and Jason Muscat down there, with Paresis on 7th and Jason Muscat on 8th. They also get a bit closer. They will start a fight very, very soon. And since you said the cars are sliding that much, we should maybe point out that these tires are old tires. We get a lot of people asking for that when the cars were released. Like, oh, I don't get grip out of the corner. Cars always sliding. Like, guess what? They're not 2018 tire specs. They're the old ones. And back then, tires have not been on the same level as tires are today.
Yeah, did completely different compound, a very hard compound this would be, although it is a slick tyre, of course. It wasn't uncommon for tyres to go the entire race before a certain tyre manufacturer got their dirty hands on the tyres in Formula 1. These tyres are quite durable. You can still wear them, of course, and end up having the car being a little bit too slidey. The best way I say to describe driving this car is it's like trying to balance something on the edge, trying to balance like a spoon or something on the you know, that salt and spoon trick. It's like that almost. I have no idea where I'm going with this, but it's a balancing act driving this car. Go drive it. It's the easiest way to understand how it drives. Go drive it. Go feel that slide yourself. You'll get a really good idea of how this car goes quickly.
Oh, Stephen Diem. Once again, they're struggling there. I'm not sure if it's Yuri Kastrup that actually destroys the rhythm of Stephen here, with him trying to adjust to what happens in front, what happens in the back, because it is Adam Pinches that's obviously pushing from the back, trying to find a way around the whole group, with Jim Paris is basically having the spectator spot, looking at all of them, not really involved in the fight yet. But I see that there's some pressure that gets applied, and it seems like Yuri or Steven might be the first ones to break under that.
Possibly. Yuri is the one leading this little gaggle of cars at the moment. What we'll do is we'll quickly run down your order. We have Gergo Baldi still leading the race. POP only just behind now, only 6/10 between the two, with Kuba Brzezinski in 3rd position. Then it's Yuri Kazdorp 4th, Stephen G in 5th, Adam Pisnes in 6th, Jim Paresis 7th, Jason Muscat 8th, Philippe Caldrone in 9th, and Daniel Serangoon rounding out our top 10. At the moment, these are the guys who will be going through to the next round of the competition. Everybody else will have to come back for the next qualifying as it stands.
Yeah, but Ben's to Spanek, he's 11th, and he's really, really close to Daniel Chiranko. And it seems like Philippe Calderon is also dropping in pace a bit. I didn't check the board yet, so don't blame me for that. I just seem a bit closer to Daniel and Ben's. So that might be a drop of performance there, or maybe the other two guys are just pushing way harder. But Benz has the best shot at still getting inside the top 10. And obviously, as soon as one of these guys does a mistake up front, he will be the first one to get the advantage out of that and get further up the list. But so far, besides some DNFs we had early on and that mistake we saw by Niranja Kumar, who's still on 21st, so you've got one spot back, but that's it. We didn't saw anyone doing huge mistakes. We see people sometimes sliding a bit wide, but due to these cars not being as super perfect as nowadays Formula cars, there's a bit more margin for different lines and errors.
Well, we do have, we do have 5 retirements so far, or say, actually, I think it is 5. Antonio Coleric, suspension damage. Romain Lamy, again, also suspension damage. Christian Perusco, also Vladislav Pavlov, and Kevin Ryan, one of the bigger names to DNF. So 5 DNFs so far, 24 cars still running. I think it's worth us staying with Yuri Kazdorp, Rene, because he seems to be really struggling right now. Stephen Jim and Adam Pisnes behind, they are putting on the pressure at the moment, and while Yuri is still holding 4th position, he's falling back from 3rd, and 5th it seems to be all over the back of his gearbox.
And Giorgio Baldi found some second in his lap time, basically. He's getting away from POP. He got a bit closer in between, like maybe from 7th minute onwards. But now Giorgio Baldi is once again picking up pace really, really quick up front there. But it will definitely be Yuri Kastrop that feels the most pressured in this whole group right now. There's always a car all over him. It's the same for Felipe Calderon, who drops even more. I just saw him doing a slight mistake. So if we jump back to 9th position, we see Felipe Calderon now basically filling the whole side of Daniel Chiranko, who's really, really close now. And that means for Benz, that is his chance. As soon as Daniel attacks Felipe Calderon, there might be a sweet spot for him in as well to get in the top 10.
Yeah, Ben Sabatnik there in 11th position. He's just the last car on your picture at the moment. He is the first person to not be going through at this race, so he needs to find a way past Daniel Serangoon sooner rather than later. He's getting very close now to the back of our last qualifier at the moment, or provisional qualifier, I should say. Looks like Felipe in front. I think he has the pace to pull the gap again, but don't really want many more mistakes like that, especially when you're so on the cusp of qualifying for the next stage of the competition. Right now, again, back to Yuri Kazdorp, and the gap to Stephen Dim is about the same as it was before, but it just seems this whole group of cars is falling back. The gap last time around was about 7 seconds. It's 8 seconds this lap to the leader, that is. Let's see what it is this time around. It's actually come down slightly, so it looks like Yuri's trying to pick up the pace. You see Stephen Jean there in the background, just showing his car to Yuri, just showing his mirrors, say, look, I'm here. I'm going to try and distract you. Don't focus on the apex in front. Look at me instead. Very good trick that if you're trying to get past the guy in front but don't quite have the pace to get alongside. And through the slower corners, Yuri is really backing up Stephen.
Yeah, and also Jim Paris is now way closer to Adam, basically trying to get some good shots in that mirror, making sure that his selfies are on point. This car should fill that mirror pretty well right now. Philippe Calderon picked up a bit of pace. Once again, we see Daniel and Benzi actually dropping back, which means it will be once again on Benzi to get inside the top 10. There's no other way currently. There's no fight helping him out there on the side of Philippe Calderon. I see Ivan Fernandez drifting a bit left and right, but everyone else seems to be straight on point. Matthew Daniels, he needs to defend his position against Mark Behrens at 18th and 19th position right now. And not really with the top spots, but still you never know what happens.
Yeah, I mean, those guys right now, they kind of need something big to happen at the top of the field for them to possibly go through. We're having a couple of more, I think, disconnections at the moment. No, sorry, that was an old one, apologies. Oh, wow, Bence is now right on the back of Daniel Serangoon at the moment. So that's Serangoon versus Saputnik for 10th and 11th position. Almost had a look up the inside, but Daniel just about covered it off at the last second. Now he's right on the back of the number 14 car coming through this last right-hander. We'll have a little bit of a slipstream coming down to T1, but I don't think he's going to be close enough. No, he's not. Looks like Sarang may be running a little bit less wing there than Sapatnik is. Coming down to T1 now, Sapatnik late on the brakes. Big lock up there for Sarang in front. That won't affect him too much. Again, 70s tyres there are hardy things. But now the pressure really being applied to our 10th place driver.
Yeah, it seems like there will be a big fight. It's the same for Yurika and Stephen Dean, but I think we should stay with Daniel and Benz for now, because that is the fight for one of the last tickets, well, basically the last ticket in this race, if it would end like this, because it's obviously the top 10 that would go through into the rFactor 2 Shadow qualifier final. Right, and now it looks great for Daniel Sharanchku and Felipe Calderon in front of him, but it's not over yet. We've got another 14 minutes, so we're halfway through the race now. So people will need to manage the tyres now. We will see that. We will see the difference now in how they manage the car throughout the first half of the race, and if their performance drop in the later half.
Well, it's more about rhythm in these cars than, I'd say, time management. If you are really simulating driving this thing, you might be using a clutch, you might be doing the old heel and toe on the downshift. Some people, you can get away with using the flappy paddle in this car, given how simulators are, but you do have to blip on the downshift, and sometimes people aren't used to doing that, and if you get one blip incorrectly, maybe you don't quite get the timing right, the rear axle locks up momentarily, literally for a split second. That's enough to start turning the car in a way you wouldn't expect it. And again, Yuri Kastorp still under supreme pressure from Stephen Jeam in 5th position there, but still not succumbing to that pressure. Yuri, very experienced driver. I know him best from driving in endurance championships. Very consistent guy, very fast guy over there, doing a good job right now of handling this pressure. Unfortunately, the top 3 cars have now all well and checked out for Yuri anyway. Oh, what have you spotted?
7 and 8, Jim Paresis, and it's not Jason Muscat, that's actually Jim onto Adam Pincher. Seems like Adam got a bit slow, I think.
Stephen Jeam's off. Stephen Jeam just went off. Big crash from Stephen Jeam. I missed what happened there. I'm going to just get the replay up on my screen and try and talk you through what happened. I'm not sure we're going to have it on stream or not. He comes into this fast right-hander. What happens? Turns in, gets the car sliding, and it just kicks back to the left. That looked like a failure more than anything else. I have no idea what happened there, but Stephen Jeam is now out of the running, which of course then promotes Ben Sabetnik up into 10th position. He is now qualified for the next round.
Yeah, he is in, and Adam now needs to defend his position from Jim Paresis. Obviously, both positions are in the top 10, so he doesn't need to be too hard on it, but it's racing. You don't want to give away any of those positions, and you never know what happens in the last 12 minutes. If you might need that position, if you might have another failure, but that was a big one. I just saw Jim and Adam starting the fight, and then it was Steven just going off.
Oh, sorry, I was just watching Benz there try and take the last corner. He nearly put it in the wall himself, got onto the grass, was just millimetres it feels away from the tyre barrier, and that would have been an instant DNF. Benz, mate, you've just got into 10th position. Don't throw it away now. Saying that, though, we have Poleski in the background as well, so that is far from safe.
Yeah, that is true. Wojciech Poleski is still just behind that. He could have a chance to get a go on Benz and Daniel 9th and 10th if they keep going like that, because I think they're still fighting very hard, and they still drop a lot in lap times with how they do it there. There's another car, Philippe. Wait, who was the orange car that was just spotted in the grass there? Maybe that was a lapped car, because Yuri Kastorp is still 4th. Nothing changed there. But Adam Pinches and Jim Paresis, they are still fighting. They're still giving each other a good run for the money here. And right behind that, it's Jason Muscat on 7th, who tries to become part of that race. Philippe Calderon still in a more or less safe position, not really trying to get involved in anything. And Daniel still defending his position with what I think Poleski now is really on the run. Look how he closes that gap to Benz. He's now directly on the rear wing of Benz, just because he knows this is now the last spot to qualify. There is someone out. This is my chance. Both of them fighting right in front of him, so this will be a big one.
Yeah, Daniel Serangoon, who's currently in 9th position, he keeps locking up the front tyre heavily into the second to last corner, so he's really pushing as well. And yes, as you said, Poleski is really starting to gain onto the back of these two. Out the pits comes a lapped car. We won't pay too much mind to that. But this now battle for 9th, 10th and 11th place is really starting to hot up. And of course the significance of that, if you've just joined us, is that only the top 10 drivers will go on to the next stage of the competition. Anyone below the top 10 will have to come back for the next qualifying round in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, there's only one shot left, which is the MP4 13. So if you think you can do better on a more modern car, I can tell you that this car, like the MP4 13, whew, that is a car that really likes to play with the rear. Not easy at all to handle. So it will be similar to what we see here. But Poleski, he does not give up. There's another 9 minutes for him. And we see that Benz and Daniel, their lines are all over the place. Because Benz now, he feels the pressure from Poleski. He tries to get away. And the only way to do so is forward to pass Daniel and get onto 9th to make sure that even if Poleski now gets a good run, he's not losing his qualified spot. But for that, he has to pass. And this is now, look at that. There's just all over them.
Yeah, so Patnack's in a bit of an odd position now. As you said, he's having to try and manage the gap ahead and behind at the same time. He's kind of stuck here behind Serangoon. Again, there was a bit of a poor second to last corner. This is where Patnack's been faster through this last corner, but he doesn't seem to have the speed in a straight line to make anything happen down into T1. Let's have a look again. We're now watching this as they come down to T1. You see that Serangoon just pulls away. I do believe he's running less wing. And again, another big lock-up of the right front into T1. Luckily, these tyres are fairly hardy, but he'll be starting to feel that now a little bit. And of course, he'll be heating up that front tyre as well. And when you get to a corner like this long on the left-hander, where the front right tyre takes a little bit of a battering, you see there, he actually gets a little bit wrong, goes a bit wide, because that tyre is heated up a bit from that lock-up at T1.
Yeah, it will be crucial now. How are the tyres still on your car? You need to defend here right now. We see 6 and 7. That's Jim Paresis and Jason Muscat. They are still fighting. Obviously, they're qualified, so we should stay with Poleski, Spanek, and Serangoon, because that is the last spot that we need to go through here. Seems like Poleski really had a good pace coming back onto this group. I guess it was because Ben started his attacks on Daniel, but now he needs to find a way around this.
Possibly getting a little bit of dirty air now. Of course, these cars don't quite produce as much dirty air as we saw last time out in the MP4-8, but they'll still produce enough to give you a bit of a tricky time through the faster corners. Poleski now, yeah, still there on the back of Ben Sepetnik, but not enough to get close enough to Sepetnik. Giving a little bit of a wiggle of the rear there to say if you want it, you have to come and get it. A little bit of a taunt there. But it does seem that Sepetnik has fallen back slightly from Serangoon now. So the gap is starting to widen up. We have Serangoon run onto the grass. I do think that our current 10th place car is running quite a bit of downforce. It seems to lose quite a bit of time on the straights here. So faster through the fast stuff, but not so quick on the straight line.
Yeah, difference in setup could also play into this. We all know that. Depending on how you want to drive that car, also defines how you can fight here in the later half of the race. Poleski still trying to go straight. To have a quick look at the times of Poleski right now. What he's doing in terms of lap times. Lap 15, he did a 132.9, while Benz is a 133.2. So there's a difference for sure. Daniel sits on a 133.0, so it was a bit quicker the last way around the track. But Poleski definitely the fastest. Is that Philippe Calderon just appearing right in front of them now? Philippe Calderon definitely dropped in pace. All the other guys just found another second on the track.
I think he has dropped back slightly. To be fair, I've not been... Yeah, he must have done. I've not been following him too much. He's been fairly anonymous in this race, actually. Just been sort of going around inside the top 10. Happy for him, of course, but yeah, he's definitely lost a lot of time, because now he has our little trio behind. It now becomes 4 cars all fighting now for what will be 8th position. Out of the 4 cars, 3 of them are currently qualified. Only Poleski, I'll get that right eventually. Poleski, there you go. Give me a slap on the wrist if you don't mind, Rene. I'm not getting these names right tonight. Oh, big lock-up again from Daniel in the background. Is that going to allow Benz up the inside? No, not quite. Not quite. He had to look up the inside, but wasn't quite enough room there to throw the nose inside, so he's going to have to stay behind for now. But Daniel, every time we get to T1, he's really pummeling that inside right tyre. That is not sustainable.
Quick update for the chat. Someone asked for Barry Aarons. He's down 2 laps right now in position 23rd. That is the last currently running and active running position. So unfortunately it doesn't look that good for him. But let's go back into the fight, and we clearly see that both of them now holding up Poleski on 11th. Well, hey, Poleski, you only got 5 minutes left to find a way around these guys.
The race has gone by very quickly indeed, and this is definitely the battle worth watching right now, because this will be your last qualifying position. Gergo Baldi is still leading the race from POP Vancouver. Brzezinski in 3rd position, but this is the fight to watch. We have less than a second separating these 3 cars on track. Again, another lockup from Daniel Sarang. He's every corner. We see a puff of smoke from one of the front tyres there. He's going to be really struggling towards the end of this race. We only have a couple minutes left now, so that's about 2 or 3 laps or so. And if Poleski wants to go through to the next round of competition, he's got to do something very soon. Otherwise, he's going to find himself being the first loser, so to speak. All right, saying that now, he's right on the back of Sepetnik. He's going to look to the outside, I think, for T1. Pulls the left-hand side. Is he going to try to go around? And the outside brakes late. While Sepetnik's also late on the brakes coming into T1. Going to try and hang it round all the way around the outside. He's still on the outside, then forced onto the gravel there. They're still side by side. And no, not quite, though. And then, wow, he was run off the circuit there by Sepetnik. That was a little bit cheeky there, I think. I think the stewards might want to have a word with Sepetnik after that.
I'm pretty sure that the Marshals will look into that, but great fight that we saw here. I was just thinking about, if they bin their cars there, there's still some lucky guys like Ivan Fernandez and Bobke Huckstra that could get away with a spot in the top 10 if these guys are not really cautious with what they do. But now, due to that touch, it seems like Poleski dropped a lot, but I could see Benz getting a penalty by the race marshals here, and maybe even drop out at the top 10, because the fight was all good. It was just at part of the exit there. I think he didn't left him with enough room to maneuver his car around, because he could have stayed on the inside to give enough room to Poleski.
I think so too. We won't focus on that too much for now. There's now a second between 10th and 11th position, which means that Poleski really needs to get his act in order to get back onto the rear of these guys. And I'm sure if he manages to catch up to the back of Ben Sepetnik, then he's going to be less than friendly on his way back through. And already the gap is visually coming down, so Poleski is now driving like a man possessed, running it almost onto the grass there out of the last corner. You have a little bit of slipstream now coming down to the first corner. He's taken 7 tenths out of Sepetnik after the incident, which shows you just how hard he's trying right now in that 18 car. I think Sepetnik might have some damage.
Yeah, that could be. We know that these cars, they on some of those parts, they're really legit. Some of the parts also easily been bent or even broken. So it seems like they're dropping off at pace again. But once, I have to remind you, it was Poleski who closed this gap. He can definitely go quicker than the guys in front of him. It's just, you know how hard it is. You had the chance, you had a shot at passing them, and now you basically go into rage mode. There's this small gap, or the balance between having the right rage mode to be super, super quick, and then going over the top and actually becoming slower because you're unconcentrated, too aggressive into the corner, spinning around the car and stuff like that.
Yep, definitely, and I think I've been in that, as you call it, rage mode before, but usually I just do worse because the red mist doesn't sit very well with me. Still watching Poleski right now, and the gap is coming back down, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Only a couple of minutes left of this race now, so I don't really think... I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what he's got left in reserve right now. Meanwhile, at the head of your field, we haven't really talked about him too much. Gergo Baldi is still leading this race 3 seconds over POP now, so he's got this one in the bag as long as he's nice and clean towards the end, with Cuba Brzezinski in 3rd, Yurika 4th, Adam Pincez in 5th, Jim Parisi 6th, Jason Muscat 7th, Philippe Padrone in 8th, Daniel Serangoon 9th, and Ben Sepetnik rounding out your top 10, of course, involved in that incident we just saw on your screen. And his time is running out for Poleski.
Yeah, it should be the last lap they're in now. I don't expect them to cross the line another time to get a lap done. And we see Vance trying to close the gap onto Daniel once again, just to make sure that he stays as far away as possible from Poleski, to not give him any chance to pass him on the last lap. I had a quick a word from the race marshal saying that it seems like Poleski gave a small bump onto Benz, which unsettled the car. So right now, there's obviously no call. We see Poleski going off track in the background here. Oh, it seemed like he was a bit pushing too much into that corner, went too wide. But yeah, there's no last call on that incident yet. They had a quick look at it.
That'll be it, Renee. That'll be it. We're on the last corner now with our leader and winner of the second round qualifying session. Gergo Baldi takes the win from Peo Peeve in second place. A great race there by Gergo Baldi. Took the lead earlier on and kept it from his pole position, I should say. Sorry, led from pole. You can't really ask for much more than that. Kuba Brzezinski in third position with Yuri Kazdop fourth. Adam Pinches comes home in fifth. Jim Paresis, after that bad luck in the first round qualifier, finally qualifies in sixth position. Jason Muscat seventh. Philippe Caldron in eighth. Daniel Serangoon in ninth. And Ben Sepetnek rounds out our top 10 qualifiers, with Poleski not quite making the cut.
Yeah, unfortunately, at least for now. I mean, obviously these are not the final standings. We will wait for the marshals to go through the whole race and then confirm all the results. We will obviously not have that live on the stream because sometimes that takes a bit of time to run through all of that. Even if I have to say it looked really, really clean to me in this race. But hey, we're just the commentators. We're just looking at it. So sometimes there's a bit more to it. So marshals will look into all the incidents and then come around with a final result for everything. But the top 10 that you have on your screen for now, these are the top 10 that also get tickets through to the rFactor 2 qualifier final, which will see all three cars, the M23, the MP4 8 and the MP4 13, being raced on 3 different tracks in just one event. So that will actually show us who's really the best on all these different cars and who gets the ticket to go over to London to the McLaren Shadow event coming further down the line. But we're done with event number 2. That means we'll quickly head back into the studio because we're coming to an end on this race. Obviously thanks to Jimmy for jumping in and cast the race with me here. But it's done for round 2. There's another round coming up. So if you watch this and you think like, hey, I want to be part of this, I can race, I can be quick in this, then just make sure that you obviously subscribe to the items in the Steam Workshop. Get the free McLaren cars, not a DLC. You can just download them and have fun with them, and then qualify for round 3 coming up next with the MP4 13. It should be Indianapolis, if I'm not mistaken. There will be a great race there. Don't miss any of that, obviously. Otherwise, it will be a kind of shame to miss any of that. We don't want to do that. I will quickly give a check if everything is all right. It says not sending. I'm pretty sure I'm sending because I can see it. But that happens. Nevertheless, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being part of today's event. Make sure to follow us on social medias, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and everywhere else for all the latest news around rFactor 2. And obviously the next round of McLaren Shadow. Have a good evening and goodbye.